You can feel it, can't you? That quiet, almost mysterious sensation that something about you is not the same anymore. Not the same person you were 6 months ago. Not even the same person you were 3 months ago. If you're honest with yourself, maybe not even the same person you were 3 weeks ago. Something fundamental has shifted inside you. Something deep. Something difficult to explain with ordinary words. And that's the strange part, isn't it? Because how do you tell someone that your entire experience of reality feels different now? How do you explain that nothing outside of you may have dramatically changed, but inside everything feels rearranged? You don't feel broken. You don't feel confused. You don't feel lost. In fact, the closest word you can find is this: awake. As if for years you were walking through a life that felt slightly foggy, like a dream you couldn't quite control. And then one day, without warning, it felt like you stepped through a doorway you didn't even know existed. And suddenly, everything became clearer, more vivid, more real, more aligned with who you truly are. It's like the colors of life became brighter, your intuition became louder, your awareness became sharper. And the strange thing is, you didn't force this change. It simply happened. Now let me say something that might sound unusual at first, but stay with me for a moment. What if this isn't just personal growth? What if this isn't just healing? What if what you're experiencing is something deeper, something more profound? What if you've actually shifted timelines? And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean something real has shifted in the direction your life is moving. You are no longer living the life you were unconsciously drifting toward. You are stepping into the life you were always meant to live. The path that was quietly waiting for you. The path God designed long before you ever understood it. And if this resonates with you, then you've probably noticed something else happening lately. Things are falling away. People you once thought would be in your life forever suddenly feel distant. Conversations that once felt natural now feel forced. Connections that once felt strong now feel strangely empty. At first you might have wondered what went wrong, but then something surprising happened. You didn't feel devastated. You didn't feel desperate to hold on. Instead, you felt a quiet sense of understanding, almost like a calm inner voice saying, they were part of the old chapter, because the version of you that once tolerated less than you deserved, the version of you that dimmed your light just to fit in, the version of you that carried other people's expectations like they were your own responsibility, that version of you is fading away. Not slowly, not painfully, but completely. And standing in its place is the version of you that was always meant to emerge. The real you. The one that had been buried beneath years of conditioning. The one that was silenced by the fear of being too different, too honest, too authentic, too aligned with something others couldn't understand. But this version of you, this version doesn't ask for permission anymore. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't search for validation from people who were never capable of seeing you clearly in the first place. This version simply knows. And if you've reached this point, you've probably started noticing things that are almost impossible to explain. Moments that feel too perfectly timed. Synchronicities that feel too specific to be coincidence. Numbers appearing again and again. Songs playing at the exact moment you needed to hear those words. Strangers saying something that answers a question you only asked silently in your own mind. Dreams that feel less like imagination and more like memories. Or that strange feeling of homesickness for a place you've never physically been. These experiences aren't random. They're not chaos. They're not imagination. They're signals. Confirmation that you are now walking a path that aligns with something bigger than your old life ever allowed. And here's the truth most people misunderstand about these shifts. They don't happen because you forced them. They don't happen because you tried to control the outcome. They don't happen because you perfectly manifested every detail. They happen when you surrender, when you finally release the life you were desperately trying to hold together, when you stop trying to control every step, when you stop performing for an audience that was never going to applaud the real you anyway. And the moment you let go, the moment you allow yourself to exist exactly as you are, imperfect, evolving, still learning, something remarkable begins to happen. Life begins rearranging itself around your authenticity. Doors that once seemed locked begin opening. People who resonate with your true energy begin appearing. Opportunities that once felt impossible, almost unrealistic, suddenly begin to feel like the most natural next step in your life. Not because you forced them open, not because you pushed harder, not because you manipulated the outcome, but because something inside you changed. You stopped fighting the current, and you started moving with it. And when that happens, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Because flow is the frequency of destiny. Flow is what happens when you stop resisting the life that is meant for you. Flow is what happens when you stop trying to control every single detail of the future, and instead, you allow life to meet you where you truly are. Now listen carefully, because this part matters more than you realize. The reason you feel so different right now isn't simply because you're healing from the past. Healing is only part of the story. What's actually happening is deeper than that. You are no longer living at the same emotional frequency as the person you used to be. You are no longer responding to life from the same place. The old wounds that used to pull at your heart don't hold the same power anymore. The old triggers that once shook your entire mood for days barely move you now. The patterns that once repeated themselves over and over again have quietly stopped showing up, not through struggle, not through endless discipline, but because you evolved beyond them. And when that happens, something powerful occurs. Cycles that lasted years, sometimes generations, suddenly end with you. Patterns that were passed down long before you even understood them are finally released. Think about that for a moment. Some of the battles you fought weren't even yours to begin with. They were inherited. They were absorbed. They were learned from environments that shaped you before you knew who you were. But now, those chapters are closing, not buried, not denied, not suppressed, but completed, finished. And what stands before you now is a completely new phase of life. This is the timeline where you begin building something entirely different, not from pain, not from lack, not from trying to prove your worth to people who never understood it, but from something far stronger, from wholeness, from clarity, from peace, from abundance, and most importantly, from the truth of who you actually are. And here's the part many people never realize. The old version of you could never have lived this life. That version would have sabotaged it. The moment things started going well, fear would have whispered that it wouldn't last. The moment a blessing arrived, doubt would have pushed it away. Because receiving something good felt unfamiliar. Sometimes it even felt dangerous. Like happiness might disappear the moment you trusted it. But this version of you, this version is different. This version has grown. This version understands something the old one didn't. That you don't have to shrink in order to belong. That you don't have to abandon yourself to be loved. That you don't have to sacrifice your integrity in order to succeed. This version of you is ready. Ready for relationships where your authenticity isn't a problem. It's the reason you're valued. Ready for success that doesn't require you to lose yourself in the process. Ready for a life that feels aligned instead of forced. And ready for the destiny that quietly whispered to you during those late nights, when you wondered if something greater was waiting for you. And if you've reached this point in your journey, there's something else you've probably noticed too. You've questioned yourself, more than once. You've wondered if maybe you're imagining this change. If maybe your mind is simply trying to cope with everything that's shifting. Maybe you've asked yourself, am I overthinking all of this? But then something strange happens. Another sign appears. Another coincidence too precise to ignore. Another moment where life responds to a thought you barely spoke out loud. And suddenly you realize something powerful. This isn't a story you're telling yourself. This is the story that has been waiting for you to step into it. The timeline where you don't just survive, you thrive. The timeline where you don't simply exist, you create. Where you don't spend your life hoping things will change. You become the person that change naturally follows. And if you've been feeling this shift deep inside you, there's something I want you to notice right now. Because most people listening to this video are going to feel something in this exact moment. A quiet recognition, almost like a voice inside saying, yes, this is exactly what I've been experiencing. And if that just happened for you, I want you to do something simple. Not for me, but for yourself. Just type 2 words in the comments. New timeline. Not everyone will understand why that matters, but the people who feel this shift will know exactly what it means. And sometimes simply acknowledging the transformation makes it even more real. Because the truth is this: the discomfort you once felt in your old life was never failure. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't you being lost. It was destiny pulling you forward. The people who walked out of your life weren't always rejecting you. Many times they were simply making space. The doors that slammed shut in your face weren't always denying you. Often they were redirecting you toward the path that was actually yours. And now you stand on the other side of that shift, in the timeline where your prayers begin unfolding. Not because you begged for them endlessly, but because you aligned yourself with the life meant for you. In the timeline where your dreams start becoming reality. Not because you chased them in desperation, but because you became the person capable of receiving them. And that's the difference that changes everything. The old version of you did its job. It carried you through lessons. It helped you understand pain. It broke down the walls that once kept you small. But now, that chapter is complete, and something new begins. Not a restart, not a redo, a beginning, right here, right now, in this moment. And if something stirred inside your chest while hearing these words, if you felt that strange recognition that this message was somehow meant to find you, then maybe it's time to accept what has already been happening. The old version of you is gone, and the person standing here now is the person you were becoming all along.